Welcome back to round number 2 here of our Spring Challenge 3 tournament here at Psycho Tournament Place in Pico Rivera, California for our Regulation I presentation. This is Coronel. That is Dennis Geisler again. We have around 2 pairings. We have Hayley Aldworth and we have Madison Kennedy here.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure all the stream viewers are happy to see Hayley running that Dondozo and Tatsugiri alongside the Calyrex Shadow Rider, Indeedee Female Weezing, the Galarian Weezing, and the Groudon, and then Madison on the other end running the Koraidon Lunala, same duo restricted as the winning team on the last round, but mostly different Pokemon with the Indeedee Female, Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, and Raging Bolt. That one's a holdover. But yeah, this is, I mean, the eye is drawn to the Dondozo, of course.
And to think that Dondozo still has relevancy in this metagame, you know.
Yeah.
Again, higher power just means a higher opportunity to say, oh, I taken out all your higher power? Okay, try to beat Dondozo.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, if you don't have a specific answer to Dondozo, it can be kind of difficult. I will say, Lunala is a pretty difficult matchup. The Terra Fairy at Lunala can be a pretty difficult matchup for Dondozo. It's a little easier with the Curly Tatsugiri because you're able to flick like an attack boosted Wave Crash or even Earthquake into it and just like do a bunch of damage there. But it can be sometimes a bit of a difficult matchup.
It can be, especially if you don't have to get those Omni boosts from that Commander boost at all. So that could be a pretty difficult sign for Madison if she ends up running into Hayley's Dondozo. But here we go, round number 2, starting off with game number 1. We have Lunala and Chi-Yu as the lead for Madison. Hayley leading the Weezing and Groudon. So neutralizing Gas means no Drought, no Beads of Ruin, no Shadow Shield.
Yeah, I was talking to Hayley a little bit before that about leading Weezing Groudon because it really confuses people. Groudon doesn't really need the sun. And the duo honestly works reasonably well together because you do just have a lot of damage out there. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see how it'll actually work out in this case.
Yeah, because this Chi-Yu Lunala variant of the Koraidon Lunala thing looks like it's more of an aggressive variant. Assuming you had to beat the Ruin up, but because you don't have it up, it's safe for Madison to just go for that wide guard, make sure Precipice Blades isn't click. Overheat, not quite enough to knock out the Weezing, and that's probably because the Beads of Ruin was not active and mattered ultimately. And here's Weezing going to munch on that Citrus Berry for some health recovery.
Yeah, not only were the Beads of Ruin not active, Sun was also not active. So a bunch of the typical multipliers for that Chi-Yu weren't able to get anything done.
Speaking of multipliers, there was no Shadow Shield multiplier for that Heat Crash against that Lunala, so it actually took it not that great, and Chi-Yu just shrugs off that Strange team.
Yeah, and Lunala went for the Wide Guard, expecting either a Precipice Blades or a Rock Slide, both of which would have been pretty nice if there was no Wide Guard, but at this point now, we're reading Wide Guard versus no Wide Guard in a lot of these turns.
That's the thing with Wide Guard, because like it's taking an uptake of usage because Lunala, one of the best Pokemon in the format, Zamazenta, one of the better restrictors in the format, and then you have utility Pokemon that love to use Wide Guard against these spread-based damage moves, and it's going to be everywhere. And there's satisfaction with getting it right, but there's also dissatisfaction when you get it wrong. Chi-Yu now going to switch out into that Indeedee. Here's Expanding Force from this Lunala, which knocks at the Weezing, so now abilities get active, Drought's reactivating, Psychic Surge is going to activate. But Lunala, unfortunately, lost out on that Shadow Shield. Yeah,
you don't always see Indeedee getting Psychic Terrain up because an Expanding Force is used. You usually see it in the opposite order.
There's Precipice Blades connecting against both Indeedee and Lunala, and both of them hang on.
Yeah, not enough to knock out here. And now, so the interaction I want to mention here, that Dondozo is on the field. So, Unaware ignores stat boosts from other Pokemon, which would mean that if, for example, Lunala goes for the Meteor Beam, that +1 will be ignored. Moongeist Beam ignores Unaware, so at +1 it will do more damage to that Dondozo.
But the better question now is, can Lunala even get off that Meteor Beam? Because look, its HP is low and it has no form of recovery for that health.
Yeah, and it will be difficult. You do have Redirection, but Precipice Blades ignores that, and so does Earthquake for that matter.
Yeah, you got a lot of spread-based moves, so...
But then you have Wide Guard if you want to use that, and on we go.
And there's Dondozo protecting.
Yeah.
Time to see what happens this turn for Hayley. And for Madison, and another Wide Guard gets clicked, so definitely still eyeing the Precipice Blades. Not sure if Hayley clicked it though, that's the other thing. Yeah, it did not click it, and it's going to feint to Heat Crash.
Yeah. That's a nice play there. Although the question is, if Lunala was just there to wide guard, what is Ndidi about to click? Might be to...
It's Psychic into the Dondozo.
Okay, that doesn't really accomplish a lot. I was curious about like a Trick Room, because Dondozo, when it does get the Commander boost, does get faster. Doesn't get like super fast, but it does get reasonably fast.
It is double speed.
It is double speed. It definitely could.
And here's Koraidon, the great friend, coming up from Madison.
Koraidon is a great friend. You know what? I agree.
I mean, how many Pokemon do we have to call great friends? Because there's so many options. There's 1,000 of these Pokemon.
Yeah, and most of them are great friends. I'm not a huge fan of Bruxich, but most of the others are great friends.
Oh my god, let's not talk about that one. Let's just move on. Okay, if somebody clips that, I'll check that out soon. Groudon going to switch out, and in comes that Tatsugiri, so Commander now going to activate.
I was going to say, in any case, there's not a lot of Pokemon remaining in this battle that can do a lot of damage to Dondozo. Obviously, a critical hit will matter quite a bit, but Dondozo can very much just click whatever moves at this point that it wants to, and probably steamroll a lot of these Pokemon. The big question is whether Chi-Yu can get anything done with something like a Beads of Ruin, boosted Overheat in Sun.
First of all, Collision Course comes out from this Koraidon. A little bit of a PNG there. I don't know what's going on there. And there's a Collision Course not doing so much damage. It's decent enough, but it's still going to take life orb damage. And there's the Earthquake and ignore Didi's Follow Me.
Yeah, and it's not honestly not a terrible...
What doesn't knock it out?
Doesn't get the Ndidi. Although that's not bad, honestly, for Hayley, that it didn't get the Ndidi there. And... I mean, we do see that the Dondozo is still slower than the Koraidon in even with the doubled speed, which can vary among Dondozos and Koraidons for that matter.
Helping hand with Ndidi,
yeah.
so definitely anticipating a attack that is going to knock out Ndidi this turn.
I was going to say, I've played against Hayley a lot. I've seen Hayley on stream a lot. It's a protect. Hayley does not give up those leftover turns. But the big question here, and the thing is, this is the curly Tatsugiri Dondozo variant, so it's a bit less physically bulky than, for example, the Droopy Body Press variant. So you are taking a bit more damage against Collision Course. The question is, can you get rid of it, and then also still have the firepower to get rid of Groudon in the back? And I really don't know if Madison has that.
Yeah, because even if you do get rid of the Dondozo, like, let's say, like, with that Chi-Yu eventually in the back, or the Translization that's coming out from Madison immediately, you still gotta deal with the Tatsugiri that's getting out of Dondozo's now, and then that Groudon in the back, as you said. But first, Terrifier Koraidon is used.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's just to click the biggest buttons possible, the Helping Hand, Terrifier, Sun-boosted Flare Blitz, and hope that does enough. I honestly don't know if it will be.
I don't think so either. Here's
Life Orb, everything.
A lot of boost into this Flare Blitz, but it's still a +2. I mean, that's a lot more damage. That's a pretty good amount of damage. And it'll get the burn, too!
It does get the burn, although I don't know if it will matter, really.
If it's Earthquake, it's still going to double KO, but it might matter for the Chi-Yu in the back.
Yeah, but the problem is, like...
And it is Earthquake again, so double KO comes out.
Double KO comes out, and the only thing left is the Chi-Yu, and... Chi-Yu's not going to get through Groudon. If Chi-Yu gets through Dondozo, Chi-Yu does not get through Groudon.
Or the Tatsugiri, for that matter.
Or the Tatsugiri, for that matter. I mean, it's in Sun. Tatsugiri is kind of the worst Pokemon ever. So it could certainly get the Tatsugiri one-on-one in some cases. And the Sun's down now, but it'll come back up when Groudon switches in. But I don't know without the Sun if Chi-Yu can actually get rid of Dondozo, even.
Yeah, and thankfully, because of that burn, the leftovers recovery is effectively negated, but you are back at neutral attack. You know, now that the multiplier is gone from that burn. 10% chance for those of you wondering at home. And back out comes to Chi-Yu. It's somewhat damaged, and Beads of Ruin is going to go up, but it's tough because you want to lock into Overheat, but you can't. You want to lock into Heat Wave, but you're risking accuracy. I really want to say your best option is Dark Pulse, but I think as you said, you can't threaten everything in time. Dark Pulse is the lock, though. And it knocks out that Dondozo with a critical hit.
Get the critical hit. That's pretty nice. I think the only out here is... I mean, I do think Chi-Yu with Scarf is faster than Tatsugiri with Scarf. I think you have to get rid of that guy first. and then hope the Groudon misses.
It has two ways to miss. I mean, obviously, Precipice Blades is very notorious for missing.
And you do have the opportunity to flinch with Dark Pulse if you want to go that route instead, but I think Hayley's going for the right play here.
Well, first stop is a Terrifier from the Groudon.
Yeah, which just going for the sun-boosted Terrifier Heat Crash is more than enough to get rid of Chiyu.
But what does Chiyu do here? Dark Pulse is the Groudon, so I guess that Assault Vest, yeah, not doing a whole lot. Tatsugiri is going to lock into that Dragon Pulse. Doesn't knock it out in return, and no flinch comes out. Heat Crash to knock out Chiyu, and that's game 1 to Hayley.
That is game 1 to Hayley, and again, this is a tough matchup for Madison's team. You do kind of need the Lunala in a lot of ways to get rid of the Dondozo. And that's the thing about this attack-focused Dondozo is that it can certainly deal damage back at the degree that it takes it. Like, you don't necessarily blank Koraidon in the way that you might if you were defense boosting, but you do a lot of damage to Koraidon in return. And if you're able to manage the little leftovers recovery that you do have with whatever Earthquakes that you get off, you can get enough done with Koraidon on the field, or with Dondozo on the field, to win the rest of the battle. And I think Hayley also just played the beginning turns very well. I mean, she Precipice Bladed the one turn that Lunala didn't click Wide Guard, and clicked Heat Crash into it the 2 turns that it did. So there were a lot of good reads early on in the battle that set up Dondozo to be in a pretty good spot. So it's mostly a question of how Madison plays around some of those early game mind games, and then whether she thinks she has a good answer for the Dondozo.
I think in the first turn of game 1, definitely that first Wide Guard that was clicked, she was definitely eyeing that Wide Guard because Precipice Blades does obviously threaten a one-hit knockout onto the Chiyu, but after enough times, you gotta think about, Wide Guarding the Pokemon that you want to protect with Wide Guard, the Dondozo Earthquake, the presumably Astro Brush from Shadow Rider should have ever come out to play. You got Precipice Blades on the Groudon. You gotta look at your board and you gotta think, am I threatened by one of those spread moves at all?
The CSRI doesn't have to show up. The real restricteds are Groudon and Dondozo.
but you're trying to get where I'm at with this discussion.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're getting at, and there's not a great answer. Because Lunala is very taxed in this matchup, and I do think probably the best thing it can do is Moongeist Beam.
Well, there's a different lead this time from Madison, as is Hayley, switching up a few components. Now it's Indeedee Lunala from Madison, and Hayley now going to lead that Dondozo and Groudon. And you see the speed tiers there. Groudon got dried off first before the Psychic Surge got up.
Yeah, I like the change here for Madison. The Chiyu certainly was valuable, but I don't think it got a ton off. Here, if you are Madison, you can go for something like there's a lot of options here, but you can follow me with the Indeedee to draw away some damage and go for just a pretty comfortable Meteor Beam.
And here's Weezing switching in from Dondozo to turn off that Shadow Shield from its move kit. And here's a big helping hand coming out from this Lunala to increase the damage, and that's a big expanding force. And it knocks out Weezing and takes Groudon to half, so neutralizing gas only out there for 2 moves.
That was a lot of damage. That was a lot of damage to Groudon.
Heat Crash now hits into a Shadow Shield off of Lunala. That's still around the same damage it took in game 1.
That's still good damage. Maybe this Groudon's just really a really high damage guy.
Either that or Lunala's not that heavy as we think.
Yeah, but now the problem is, what do you do right now if you're Hayley? Because Groudon probably drops to another expanding force. And if you switch out the Groudon to Tatsugiri, you're giving Dondozo a ton of damage with Expanding Force. Either way, you're taking Expanding Force damage. And also, you do risk the Follow Me, because Earthquake I don't think is going to take out Lunala from this range.
I don't think so either.
And so you can definitely Follow Me away a couple of hits with Indeedee, while Lunala just goes to town on Dondozo.
There comes that Tatsugiri now, again from Hayley, to activate Commander and give Dondozo double of its base stats of attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. I'm wondering if this is a turn that Lunala can possibly go for the Meteor, as you said earlier in game number 1.
Yeah, and even if it launches it into the Tatsugiri, it's still not really that bad for it.
Well, first there's Follow Me in case this Dondozo went for a single target attack, but Earthquake still possible here. It is Meteor Beam that's being clicked, and it will activate that Power Herb. Now, did it hit the Tatsugiri? Did it hit the Dondozo? Did it miss the Dondozo? Let's find out. That Power Herb now activates. It hit the Dondozo, and it hits.
Okay, so that'll do a nice little chunk of damage.
Or not.
The big thing is that now you have +1 Moongeist.
And now you had another attack boost with that Order Up.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the next Order Up will get rid of Indeedee, but the problem here is that, like, after next turn's Protect, because next turn will be a Protect. I'm guaranteeing you that right now. Okay, maybe it won't. I think it, whatever. Might be reading something. But...
Aren't we all trying to read something?
That's true. But Moongeist will do +1 boosted damage, and Dondozo, not the most specially bulky Pokemon of all time, does have +2, but you're hitting it much better than you typically would.
That's a helping hand.
It's a helping hand. Does Madison know about the Moongeist?
It's Expanding Force again.
Not the correct move.
I mean, not the correct move until we see the damage output that it provides.
It'll still be good damage, yeah. It doesn't get boosted by the +1.
Ooh, Order Up not enough to knock on the Lunala +3, and now Dondozo is now at +4.
Yeah.
Might be Earthquake range on the Indeedee.
It's absolutely Earthquake range on the Lunala. It might be on the Indeedee. That's its own question, but yeah. Expanding Force might have done more than Moongeist, even with the +1. With the +1, I think it had to do more, right?
I mean,
it's in Psychic Terrain.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Psychic Terrain boosts it twice.
Yeah, it sure does. I don't know. It's close.
Oh, the Lunala switches out.
Yeah.
Definitely wants to preserve it for a later turn, and here comes Koraidon again for Madison.
That's an aggressive switch, but I don't hate it. I actually like it quite a bit. Because now you get in the Koraidon. I guess the question is...
Yeah, there's a Protect.
How many turns of Sun are left?
It might be one. I think it's just one or two, and there's the Follow Me just doing nothing.
Yeah, it might have been trying to get rid of Indeedee there.
No, we're going to make sure Indeedee does do something. It's got our attention.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I am looking at Indeedee. I guess the question...
Okay, there is one more Sun turn.
Okay, there's one more Sun turn.
And that's one more turn of Psychic Terrain as well, because Groudon and Lunala... Groudon and Indeedee came in at the same time.
Yeah. But the problem here is we're in the same spot as the previous game where you still do need to get rid of the Groudon in the back, although you do have Lunala with the ability to do that to some degree of efficacy. The problem is that do you just want to Terra Fire, Life Orb, Flare Blitz in Sun, the Helping Hand boosted in Sun, all that, the Dondozo?
No Terra comes out, and there's
Terra.
The Helping Hand again from this Indeedee to boost that Koraidon's damage with Collision Course.
Yeah.
Time to see how much damage this does. It didn't do good check the first time. Barely misses the knockout on Dondozo even through that +2 defense boost. And here's the Earthquake. It might not knock out both, and that's probably why Koraidon didn't even go for the Terra. It does knock out the Indeedee, but Koraidon hangs on, but the Orichalcum Pulse will subside.
Yeah, and it's not bad that it didn't knock out the... or that it did knock out the Indeedee, because now you get a switch back in on the Lunala.
Psychic Terrain's gone, though.
Yeah, that is a problem for Madison, that the Psychic Terrain's gone. Like, you're getting towards okay, the endgame might be a little bit dicey against Tatsugiri,
and Raging Bull comes out for Madison instead. It's the last Pokemon on her side for game 2.
I don't hate that, although I do worry.
And it activates Booster Energy does. That kind of plays around the Sun not being here.
Yeah. Yeah, you still get the special attack boost. Like, one Thunderbolt from Raging Bolt will take out Dondozo at this point.
And Koraidon switches out back into Lunala to hopefully get a better opportunity to go for that Orichalcum Pulse, but it's going to get back up anyway once it's Dondozo face, because Groudon's going to have to be forced to switch in. Raging Bolt protects. Hold on a minute. Did this Dondozo click Earthquake, or did it unfortunately do something else? It protected. It's going to fail.
Click Protect there, I'd imagine.
But that does mean that the next Protector that Dondozo comes out will succeed.
Yeah, and you do get the Leftovers recovery, and maybe you get the double Leftovers recovery.
Yeah, she's going to protect.
More Leftovers recovery. I mean, you're getting into, like, oh, maybe you do take a Thunderbolt range, but I don't know if you take, like, a Thunderbolt plus a Moongeist.
I'm pretty sure that the Photosynthesis multiplier doesn't account for Unaware, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, it's still a super effective move, is the big thing.
And Madison's going to Terrestrialize. Time to see which one of these two Pokemon it can be. It's going to be a Raging Bolt, and it's going to Terrestrialize. It's that Fairy type.
Yeah, with the Terra Fairy, I mean, you're not
You're not weak to Earthquake or Order Up anymore.
You're not weak to Earthquake. You're not weak to. You don't take any damage against Order Up. You're not weak to Precipice Blades, which is important. You don't take any damage against Dragon Pulse. The only thing you're really weak to is Heavy Slam, and Raging Bolt's pretty heavy, so.
It's Moon Ice, Beam, and Thunderbolt, notably.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if it's enough damage. I think it is against non-Terra Dondozo. The question is, does Hayley want to burn the Terra with the hope that it'll take both these hits? I don't know if it will, even.
I mean, this also goes back to your comment about Moongeist Beam, because even at neutral, I still think it might knock out Dondozo from that range if the Moongeist Beam doesn't need to ignore Unaware.
It ignores Unaware, but Lunala's not boosted now.
But does it need to be? Is the question we're going to find out right now. Here's Moongeist Beam. Ignores that Unaware +2 plus defense boost. Oh, it doesn't knock out! And Thunderbolt will just take the fall, and Tatsugiri's going to pop out.
To be clear, it ignores Unaware ignoring its boosts. It does not ignore Dondozo's boosts.
Fair enough.
It's a really weird... Lunala has the weirdest interactions in the game. I've had to learn a lot of them lately. But in any case, yeah, the double up does do it. The question now is just, do you have the damage for Groudon? Which Groudon is already at half HP. It took a bunch of damage against Expanding Force earlier, and there's a Koraidon in the back. So Madison's in a really good spot here.
Yeah, I think her only worry now is Choice Star Tatsugiri.
Yeah,
and there's a Wide Guard just in case Icy Wind comes out. Or Precipice Blades.
The scary thing is Muddy Water, actually.
And Dragon Pulse. So Lunala will faint.
Okay. And locking into Dragon Pulse is not bad, because you do lose to Raging Bolt, but you get a ton of damage.
Trigger Meteor into the Groudon! KO!
Wow, I am surprised the Raging Bolt outsped the Groudon, honestly. And
I think it's also base 97 speed.
Yeah. So that means that Madison just wins, because Tatsugiri is locked into Dragon Pulse.
Yeah, it can no longer damage the Raging Bolt.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I didn't hate the idea, because it's like, okay, yeah, why would my Groudon lose to Raging Bolt? And I guess that's why.
Yeah, it's time to see how Madison wants to finish out this game. It's gonna be Tatsugiri outfitting Koraidon, so that's actually a really good thing to note.
Yeah, it's scarfed. Tatsugiri can reach, and I'm not saying that it does have that, but it can reach around the same scarfed speed tier as, like, Urshifu. Like a little bit higher than Calyrex Shadow, and I think that's probably where you have to put it if you're scarfing it.
Yeah. Anyway, Madison does confirm the Game 2 win. We have our first Game 3 set of Regulation I.
We sure do. And I like how Madison adapted that game. Again, just like, okay, how do I load up the most damage on Dondozo that I can?
But it was also a good awareness from Madison, to think, this is probably my best lead, even if Wheezing comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and like, it didn't end up mattering a whole lot because Expanding Force came out and got rid of Wheezing immediately. Yeah,
just before it was able to disrupt the Psychic Terrain, which was not able to do in Game 2.
Yeah. So
it might be the case that Hayley could just bring that Indeedee back, that Wheezing back for the lead.
Yeah, make it the lead this time, because that's the thing about the Dondozo plus whatever else lead, like the Dondozo plus not Tatsugiri. It gives you the opportunity to switch into Tatsugiri if you want, but it deprives you of the ability of having something else already on the field, because the other option is either protect Dondozo or swap out the Dondozo, and it leaves you on the back foot a little bit too often for my liking.
And it's also at the same time.
Also, like, I keep wondering, it's like, this is the situation where it's like, okay, now you bring out the horse. now you bring out the horse and just steamroll.
Yeah, and there's like only one point when I could actually take Azeroth, and that was Indeedee because of that normal typing.
Yeah, everything else is not super happy to be eating hits from that thing, especially if it's like, oh, I was preparing my entire team to beat Dondozo in the back. Like, I had kind of managed what Pokemon I had remaining for Dondozo, and then that...
What's going on?
Urshifu in the background, I Hayley.
Yeah, that is. We can confirm you, chat. That is a Rapid Strike Urshifu plus.
I got distracted in the middle of my sentence.
Okay, it looks like the CSR is not going to come out from Hayley, which I think is understandable why, because the Chiyu's still a threat.
I get it, because there's a lot of stuff that Shadow Rider doesn't necessarily want to mess with on this team, but that's something you always have to keep in mind when you're playing against it, or when you're playing as it, is that it's like, okay, and this is with Dondozo, is, okay, if someone over-indexes into beating Dondozo...
Whoa! Ooh, that is a double restricted lead from Madison, and we see the Weezing Groudon lead back from Game 1 from Hayley, so the only things that are not activatable are Drought, or Calcum Pulse, and Shadow Shield.
I like this lead a lot, though, from Madison, because even though you don't get all the activations, you probably assumed that you wouldn't get them because of Weezing, and now you have, like, a bunch of different ways to put down some early threat. I think the goal would be to get rid of Weezing as quickly as possible, so that you can, one, get the Orichalcum Pulse up and get your Sun and all that, and also just, like, okay, get the Dondozo out here and let's do some business.
For what business shall be done, because we do know that the Lunala is holding that Power Herb for the Meteor Beam. Weezing protects turn 1 just in case Expanding Force goes that way, but I don't know if it is going to go that way at all. Like, as another Wide Guard comes out for Precipice Blades.
Ooh, don't love that.
Did it even come out though? First of all, Collision Course hits the Groudon.
We'll see how much this actually does. I don't know.
Around half.
That's good damage.
That's around half. It's going to take a bit of Life Orb chip as well. And once again, Lunala can't find Precipice Blades.
Yeah. It's actually really funny the order of these events. But now you know that Weezing is not able to protect here. So you could just load up into that thing. Either, I mean, you do have to raid a potential Terra, since Hayley is always kind of conservative about using the Terras, and always has an option to not use them, and doesn't really need a Terra. Okay. Koraidon's out.
So it's definitely in case of that Strange Team, because Strange Team is quite effective against it, and indeed he comes in, but once again with neutralizing gas, Psychic Search will not activate, and Hayley will Terra.
Yeah, and I believe this is going to be the Terra Dark Weezing.
That is Weezing going for the Terra.
Expanding
it is dark.
That slot, then that would be pretty bad for Madison, because then you might just lose Lunala. Depending on what the Groudon does.
It was!
Yeah, it sure was. And it's single target. You probably would have gotten rid of it if...
It missed something! It misses the Lunala!
That's good for Madison, getting that miss.
Half damage though, indeed, though, and Strange Team to counter, double up, and indeed it's going to hang on 25 speed. There is no confusion.
Yeah, it's still a really good spot for Hayley, though, because again, the game plan with Dondozo is not win the game with your 2 leads. Like, the game plan here is not win the game with your 2 leads, it's break the other team open enough to where Dondozo can just finish things off. And it's a really good situation for Dondozo. You are restricted, you're not going to be able to Terra, is the one problem. So you're a little bit more worried about Thunderbolt, but in terms of what's out here right now, there's not a whole lot of damage being threatened. I don't think that Groudon gets knocked out by moves that happen right now. You can honestly even Precipice Blades.
Helping Hand. You might use might as well just Helping Hand, because you know Lunala's probably going to go down this turn.
It might get knocked out by this.
His Expanding Force. It's Helping Hand boosted, but because there's no terrain, it's not enough to knock out the Groudon. Heat Crash is going to knock out the Indeedee in return. What did Weezing do? As Groudon nearly faced the Rocky Helmet.
I think Groudon takes the Rocky Helmet chip, but it was a little scary there for a second.
And the Weezing from Hayley clicks Taunt, so the only thing that's stopped here is Wide Guard.
Yeah, which doesn't really... It doesn't do a lot right now.
Time to see. I mean, it'll do a lot based on what Madison could have in the back. I mean, obviously the Indeedee went down. Koraidon doesn't want to be in front of Weezing right now without Terra.
Yeah.
The
big question here is how does... I think Koraidon has to come back out here. You are very easily threatening 2 KOs here if you're Madison. And the question is, does Hayley care?
Yeah, because Collision Course is now heavily boosted to that Terra Dark Weezing.
Yeah, Collision Course destroys Weezing, and any move from Lunala will finish off Groudon, and I think both of those moves will go off before either of Hayley's moves. So, do you care if both these Pokemon drop right now?
Or
do you go for the double
switch?
Yeah,
Yes.
Do you double switch and just go for the... Yeah.
There's one switch, Groudon getting out of here. What comes into that slot? It's Dondozo.
The Pumps.
What does Pompous mean anyway?
It's like a British noble is like, oh, I'm pompous, self-important and stuff. Like, I'm doing my best.
Alright, well...
Tatsugiri the Recluse.
Alright, Tatsugiri will, I think, Commander that Weezing's out of play will double all of Dondozo's relevant stats except for accuracy and evasion, thankfully.
Yeah.
Shadow Shield's back online, but once again, way too late for that. Or Calculus Pulse now online for Koraidon.
Yeah, and if all that happened was Lunala went for like a little expanding force into the Dondozo slot,
Koraidon protects.
Ooh, the Koraidon protects. That's fascinating. It doesn't really need
an expanding force hits the Groudon slot, so Dondozo will take a bit of damage. Yeah, it's like around 15%.
That's fascinating though, because that's not super different than if Koraidon had like launched an attack into that Weezing slot that had gotten blocked. But now you can feel pretty good clicking Earthquake if you're Hayley, because White Guard's not available.
Yeah, White Guard is not available.
What do you do about that?
Yeah, Lunala's going to fake this turn, and then there's the Pokemon in the back that could be. Chiyu does not want to. Chiyu, Abrasive does not want to take Earthquake. Rage Bolt does not want to take Earthquake. Flutter Mane, you chase too, but you don't want to.
Yeah, you probably drop the Savage.
I think this is the point of the game where Koraidon switches out. I was about to say maybe you're fine letting go of Lunala for the rest of the game, and Raging Bolt comes in. Whoa!
Yeah, Raging Bolt comes in here. It will take a lot of damage to Earthquake, but it is still reasonably bulky. It's not like a super frail Pokemon.
Okay, Lunala goes first, so that is a super speedy Lunala actually. Even though it's double speed.
Yeah.
And no, the power herb never activated, so Dondozo will just go Earthquake, take the Moon Rising decently well. Lunala does not survive. Raging Bolt hangs on just barely. Critical hit on Lunala too.
Whew, that's a lot of damage. Yeah, there is not a lot to be done at this point, and the Dondozo will continue to heal up. I mean, there's really nothing stopping a Protect next turn to get a little bit more HP out of it, and just kind of slowly play through this.
Yeah, because what can the Koraidon even do? Because this game comes down to Raging Bolt if it can get some attack stop, but here's your issue. If Dondozo's faster than Raging Bolt, which I think it is, Raging Bolt can never win the game.
Yeah, I think that really the only out for Madison right now is a crit. It's like a crit collision course. Or maybe Flare Blitz, but probably collision course. Because I think if you commit to the Terrifier, all the everything on the Koraidon, it doesn't necessarily even win you the game. Like, it doesn't actually do anything for you.
Collision Course was the first move selected, and Draco Meteor is the second one, so definitely tries to play around the Unaware. Because Draco Meteor does not care for Unaware, because like even though you are effectively a +2 substance plays, that's the same damage you're going to get every hit.
Yeah, I still think the Thunderbolt's better because one, you can para, which is an out, and two, it's around the same damage and super effective.
Full protects.
Yeah, and the protect is also fine. I think it's not a bad idea to like desync the Dondozo and Raging Bolt attacks. Again, it's like you have an out if you're able to KO this Dondozo. There's a lot of damage being done, but the problem is you're taking a Life Orb damage back, you're taking Earthquake damage, which this will be pretty good damage to the Koraidon still, and then you still need to take out the Weezing in the back as well.
Okay, yeah, the next Earthquake will do it.
Yeah, the next Earthquake will do it to Koraidon, and you're waiting on all this leftovers recovery. You're not actually getting that much damage down because you're taking so much leftovers recovery on this Dondozo.
That's the thing, because you pointed out perfectly. Dondozo's role was to clean up the games that it was meant to clean up, because now that Hayley's Madison's best form of damage, Lunala is basically gone, this Raging Bolt and Koraidon just doesn't have enough damage output, or maybe the speed to knock out this Dondozo. Unless, of course, you said it, if Collision Course has a critical hit, that does ignore the +2 defense boost it got.
Yeah, and I think it should do it.
And,
not without the sun.
That's where Calculus Pulse and Photosynthesis turned off.
It does have the booster energy, so that's fine, but I think and I think this next turn you just have to YOLO hit all your moves into Dondozo and hope that it does something. And even then, I don't know if you have a win condition, because...
And Madison's still content on clicking a Draco Meteor onto this Dondozo.
Yeah, it's marginal. It does do a little bit more damage, but I think at this point, really you're only out. A para is genuinely an out, though.
Koraidon protects now.
Okay.
Time to see if Hayley actually did go for a single target move. Rachel is indeed faster. Connect Draco Meteor, it doesn't knock out Dondozo.
Yeah, not at this point.
And Earthquake comes out, Rachel's gonna get knocked out. Can Koraidon potentially have a chance to knock out this Dondozo and see if he can try to do much of anything? Because I'm trying to think, if Koraidon does knock out Dondozo somehow, can you beat Tatsugiri, Groudon, and Weezing? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
I was gonna say, I don't think all three of them. I think the problem is that you'll get to the point where, okay, we'll see if Collision Course knocks out. It actually might.
That's what I'm thinking. It might get the KO. No, it does not. It does not get the KO. It takes a bit more of that Life Orb recoil chip. Earthquake comes out. It will knock out that Koraidon. Hayley Aldworth gonna win this round number 2 set 2-1 over Madison Kennedy.
Yeah, I hope everyone at home enjoyed that Dondozing. I certainly did. Madison certainly didn't. And I think Madison showed a lot of the ways that you can kind of break through a Dondozo in a reasonable number of turns, but not necessarily, and also showing the ways that Hayley and that Dondozo is able to break massive holes in your team, even if you have ways to deal with it over a couple of turns.
Yeah, because we did see it game 2, and the only flaw was that Weezing was not the lead, and it ended up putting a big hole into Hayley's game plan, and she ended up correcting it for that game 3, and that just shows you, even though, like, maybe Dondozo was the star of the show, but I think the bigger star of the show was that Weezing.
Yeah, the Weezing kept all that boosted damage away. It kept away the boosted Expanding Force, it kept away the boosted Collision Course and Flare Blitz, all of those, like, and again, all of that damage adds up, and so when you're able to take more hits with Dondozo because there are fewer boosts in play, then yeah, you're certainly going to have a pretty good time of things.
Yeah, and now that's going to be doing it for our round number 2 here. We will have another pretty decently sized break here before we go into round number 3, which you want to stick around for.